is the Palin Update on SaraNet Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla.
Whatever party you belong to, there are facts that you need to know. And Senator Obama has voted against bills to end partial birth abortion.
Closing arguments are expected soon in the trial of Kermit Gosnell, the late-term Philadelphia abortionist. Much of the media has been silent about this case, even though Gosnell is accused of multiple counts of murder. In a stark contrast, while Governor Palin spoke at another pro-life event this past week, President Obama headlined a Planned Parenthood shindig, the first sitting president to ever do so, even while the Gosnell infanticide case is ongoing. Today, we're joined by a man who was in the courtroom for some of the Gosnell case. He is a pro-life warrior. National Director of Priests for Life, Frank Pavone, is here. Sarah Palin addresses Obama's Planned Parenthood support and the horror of baby butchering. The governor highlights a National Review piece by Mark Stein. Palin asks for answers after the Army removes Bible references from some weapon scopes. Governor applauds her sister Heather for a great feat with her feet. And Sarah Palin calls out the D.C. nerds for being out of touch yet again. Just ahead, our latest edition of Steel Resolve with Sarah Steelman. Right now, we welcome in Frank Pavone as a Catholic priest, National Director of Priests for Life, and you may remember him as spiritual advisor to the family of Terry Schiavo. He was recently a part of the Schiavo Gala with Governor Palin, and we are so happy to have him here today. Welcome to the Palin Update on SaraNet Radio.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
First, let's let people know what Priests for Life is all about. Alveda King, a friend of the show, speaks so highly of you, and your record of life issues has been impeccable, whether it be the fight for the unborn or your work with Terry Schiavo. What does Priests for Life do?
Well, this is actually a movement within the church to help everybody, both in the church and in the wider society, respond to the problem of abortion and euthanasia. The ministry helps educate people, mobilize them, strategize and network people who are doing something about these problems, and we do a lot of media outreach to get the message as far and wide as we can.
You were at the Kermit Gosnell trial this past week. Can you tell us your sense of what's going on there?
Well, eyes are being opened. There's no question about it. Both inside and outside the courtroom, people are realizing the horrors that go on inside of abortion clinics, which many people think because they're legal that therefore they're safe. That myth is being destroyed. People are just astonished that this man killed babies even outside the womb. And those of us in the pro-life movement are saying, look, this is what we've been saying all along. This is what abortion leads to. I think that this man is charged with so many different crimes that it would be hard to imagine him not ending up with some pretty severe punishment.
Why is the media not covering this more, or in some cases not at all? You would think someone accused of killing so many people that this would be the lead story every day. Instead, it's buried.
You know, there's something called the abortion distortion that those of us in this pro-life battle have, again, talked about for decades. All the rules that normally apply within the area of media, business, the legal sphere, suddenly get bent out of all proportion when it comes to abortion, because so many in our society want to protect this so-called right to abortion as a sacred cow. We even see it in the grand jury report about Kermit Gosnell. They said, you know, the political football of abortion nobody wants to touch, even to the point that state authorities turned the other way and didn't do anything to stop Gosnell from harming and killing people. So the same is true within media circles. I mean, surveys have shown for many years that the preponderance of those who work in major secular media outlets are, in fact, in favor of legal abortion. And sadly, a lot of times they just don't want to do or say anything that'll cast a negative light on it. And I think it's fair to say that at least some of the reason for the relative silence is due to that.
You are a Catholic priest who isn't shy about speaking about politics. That's not always the case in the priesthood. I think this Gosnell example is proof of exactly why you must speak out. When there's a media blackout, people like yourself are really the only sources of what's really happening.
Well, that's right. We have to speak fearlessly. Our faith tells us that, and common sense and good reason tell us that as well. And when it comes to politics, as I always say, we need public servants who know the difference between serving the public and killing the public. And to assert that is not to be partisan. To assert that is simply to reaffirm the very meaning of public office and the very purpose of government, which is to protect life.
This is gruesome, this Gosnell case. You mentioned the grand jury report. I couldn't get through it myself. Some people filled me in, though, a little bit. And, this speaks of snapping necks of babies, cutting spinal cords. Is this the most horrific case there could be?
Well, it is pretty horrific, but really when you look at what abortion itself does, it's pretty gruesome right across the board. We have, for example, every year tens of thousands of children being dismembered right inside the womb, and you can buy the medical textbooks that describe how the abortionist tears the arms and legs off, crushes the skull, and these are legal procedures happening every day across America. What the horror of the Gosnell trial is doing, therefore, it's really pulling the veil aside of all abortion, and this is what I hope is going to be a big result of this, that people really come face to face with what has been a long-standing, very hidden form of violence in our society called abortion.
Any sense of how this is going? Will he be convicted? People were very nervous this past week when the judge started acquitting Gosnell on some of the murder charges.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about that because the issue all along with these murder charges on these babies is how much evidence there was that they were in fact born alive. The fact that several babies are still on the chart here in terms of murder charges is very, very important, and I think that the defense is going to have a pretty hard time defending him. They didn't call any witnesses for him, which was very interesting, and it'll be interesting to see what the closing arguments have to say.
Will this Gosnell situation change some minds? Some who are pro-abortion may take a closer look now.
Yes, this Gosnell situation will certainly help those who are pro-abortion or who like to call themselves pro-choice to say, look, there are limits. There's a certain point at which the life of the baby does require protection and take precedence over choice. There are limits to how much an abortionist should be allowed to get away with, and that's really I think that what's the lesson that's coming across on this trial is there are limits, and this man certainly transgressed them.
Sarah Palin recently spoke at the Terri Schiavo Gala on Terry's Day, and you were there, too. It was great to see you.
Thank you.
How do you think the governor did in her speech in spreading that message of life?
Oh, she was wonderful. I mean, she first of all was so gracious to accept the invitation of Terri Schiavo's family. Of course, she was very aware of the whole drama that unfolded in our country 8 years ago, and just her presence was such an encouragement to the family, whom, of course, I've come to know very well. They were just, if she had just stood up there and said, "Hi, I'm Governor Sarah Palin, God bless you all," the family would have been just as encouraged. But then she went on to give remarks which were even more. She was really sharing her heart for a much longer period of time, I think, than we expected, and happily so. Again, showing her generous spirit of really wanting to help the cause of this family, having gone through such a tragedy, now reaching out to other families who are experiencing similar challenges. She wanted to affirm that, and she certainly succeeded in doing so.
And she keeps it up. She just delivered another big pro-life speech this past weekend in Nevada, and while Governor Palin keeps up the fight for life, like yourself, like Alveda King, President Obama not so much. He's fully entrenched now, arm in arm with Planned Parenthood, speaking at a Planned Parenthood gala, first sitting president to do so. What are your thoughts on that?
There is a high degree of intimacy between the whole abortion industry and this administration, and in fact with the higher echelons of the Democratic Party. We've seen that across the board, many ways. And this president is brazen in his support of abortion. You know, some abortion supporters in politics say, "Well, I'm pro-choice," and they spout a few slogans, but then they leave it at that. This man jumps right in to the fray and pushes it unapologetically, which should put us all should get our attention really across America, especially when we see more of the horrors of abortion being revealed. It's a political alliance, is what it comes down to, and the money from abortion is going into the coffers of so many of these political candidates, and this is why we see them so unafraid to show their support for what is, in Planned Parenthood, not only the nation's largest abortion provider, but also is being revealed more and more as a criminal enterprise itself, as they cover up sexual abuse, as they run clinics that also are breaking the law in various ways.
How can people learn more about Priests for Life?
They can go to priestsforlife.org and or gospeloflife.org. These websites are for all people, not just priests, not just Catholics, but everyone who wants to do something about ending abortion. Gospel of Life or Priests for Life, you'll find lots of resources there on those websites.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, and of course for all you do in the fight for life, and specifically right now being on top of things on this Gosnell situation. We know that we have some eyes and ears there that will give us the real deal.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's a real pleasure. We'll talk to you again.
For more on what Frank Pavone does, check out priestsforlife.org. One of the many reasons conservatives prefer someone like Sarah Palin compared to establishment Republicans is because she offers an opposite approach to the left in bold colors, not pale pastels, like so many of the hand-picked GOP candidates we've seen in recent years. Well, this past week offered a clear contrast between Palin and Obama. While the governor addressed a pro-life women's resource center in Nevada, the president attended a Planned Parenthood gala. While Palin reminded women that they're strong enough and capable enough to choose life, Obama palled around with a pro-abortion, discredited organization that has looked the other way while mass murder took place at the Gosnell Clinic. Governor Palin recommends Jonah Goldberg's book, Liberal Fascism, for more on Planned Parenthood and its racist origins. Governor Palin also highlighted a National Review piece this past week from Mark Stein. It's titled The Coexist Bombers, a heady piece, some great insight and observation. Check it out at nationalreview.com. Sarah Palin wants answers. She asks who's giving the order and who has the guts to take responsibility for this nonsense. The governor's talking about this ridiculous situation going on with the Army directing troops to remove a Bible inscription that a vendor etched into the serial numbers of weapon scopes. Soldiers say they received a directive to turn in their scopes so the Bible references could be removed. Todd Starnes broke the story for Fox. You can read his article on the matter through a link right on Sarah Palin's Facebook page or on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA. We talked about it right here on the Palin Update a few weeks ago with Chuck Heath Jr., and this past week, Governor Palin brought attention to the accomplishments of her sister Heather. For her 50th birthday, Heather quietly headed to New Orleans from Alaska and ran a marathon. But she was pretty modest about how she did in that race. She told everyone she did okay. Turns out Heather did much better. She was awarded a plaque from the New Orleans Rock and Roll Marathon for her outstanding performance. Governor Palin calls her sister inspirational. But this is nothing new from Heather. It's rarely about her. She's always there to help. Governor Palin said the last text from her sister wasn't about any athletic accomplishments, but instead about how proud she is of her son Karcher, who we also highlighted here on the program recently. Karcher will be graduating high school next month in the top 10% of all students, all while dealing with some special challenges. The governor says Heather will want to wring her neck for bragging about her, or she'll try to arm wrestle her into oblivion to teach her a lesson. Well, be on the lookout, Governor, because we're going to highlight this bragging. Heather deserves it, as does Karcher. Congratulations to all. After another self-serving Obama event in Washington this past weekend, Sarah Palin came out swinging, saying, "Yuck it up, media and politicians. While America is buried in taxes and a fight for our rights, the permanent political class in D.C. dresses up and has a prom to make fun of themselves. No need for that. We get the real joke." Palin referring to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. She goes on to say on Twitter that hashtag WHCD, White House Correspondents' Dinner, was pathetic. The rest of America is out there working our asses off, while these D.C. ass clowns throw themselves a hashtag nerd prom. Sarah Palin talks like us, thinks like us, loves this exceptional country like us. Now our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. I admit I can be a bit simple-minded. However, I prefer to call it good old common sense. Soren Kierkegaard, the great Christian philosopher and writer, suggests there are two types of deception. One is to believe what is not true. The other is to not believe what is true. What category do you think President Obama falls into? These punks were self-declared radical Islamic extremists. Most of us normal people have come to that conclusion simply by reading all the evidence that supports the fact. Yes, we have multiple layers of intelligence agencies examining every aspect of the Boston bombers. But their hands were tied by this president. In fact, the Obama administration in 2011 purged information from the FBI training manual that would have helped to identify and stop this kind of terrorist. Information about the warning signs of the connection between the bombers' kind of religious fervor and terrifying acts of jihad was deleted. The result is that this administration is not doing its job to keep America safe. It is imperative for the President of the United States to take a strong leadership position, stand clearly, stating to the world why America will not tolerate Islamic jihadist terrorists or any terrorists, and yes, call them what they are. Say the words, make the case, and let the world know why. We must know our enemy to defeat our enemy. This is no time for political correctness. Our country's safety is at risk. I am fearful that the president falls into Kierkegaard's first category. The president believes what is not true. The president chooses to believe a lie. This is Sarah Steelman for SarahNet Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. And don't forget, the Palin Update, including Steel Resolve, is now on demand and available for download. So just head to SarahNetRadio.net, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. Visit SarahNetRadio.net for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, follow along on Twitter at SarahNet Radio, at Kevin Scholla, and at Sarah_Steelman. Also, we're on Facebook, so be sure to like SarahNet Radio and like Kevin Scholla. Palin Patriots, that's our new feature on SarahNet.net. Enjoy the writings from our great panel of contributors, including Martha Zoller. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Just go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman and everyone here at SarahNet Radio. Thanks to Rev Frank Pavone, and thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.